Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel and welcome to another indie show preview. I'm of course Dan DP or DePreezy, and this time we're going back to the world of lovely Ontario, Canada, to the small town of Barrie to look at Barrie Wrestling. Once again, this is for the April 13th show, the Fallout tournament, and of course if you've seen these previews, I'll say reviews that I've done with other people within the Barrie Wrestling universe, I tend to, reach my hand in, sort of a lucky dip, see what I can pull out. And this time, of course, I pulled out someone I should say, very special. The one could say that he is the voice of Barrie Wrestling, has been a part of the company since their very first show in 2014. This person's been a sports announcer and commentator for the past 25 years. Primarily, of course, he handles two official sports, lacrosse and hockey. Also, the original ring announcer for Barrie Wrestling, and has been looking after color commentary for the company since they first started broadcasting shows 3 years ago in 2021. Always begins every show by greeting the crowds, hyping the crowd up for what is to come. And of course, outside of that, I've been told to let you know that they're also an on-screen talent for Destiny Wrestling, and also the commissioner for the Ontario Junior C Lacrosse League, and also the owner of an award-winning digital marketing firm. If you've not worked out who this is, I can't help you. But what I can do is tell you who I've got with me. It is, of course, Diamond Jim Lowe. How are you doing?
Oh, after that intro was great. And if I hadn't written it, I'd still think it was great. So thank you for having me on the HCW show. I'm so excited to be here. My nose was a little out of joint when you started by having that pipsqueak Mike Jeffries on as your very first BW guest, but I guess you wanted to warm up and get used to like a really mediocre Canadian before you started getting into the big dogs. So very happy to be here, DP. And especially you were talking about how, one of my favorite parts of Barrie Wrestling is being the person who goes out at the start of the show and hypes the crowd for what they're about to see. And man, my job in less than 6 days is going to be so easy because the Fallout tournament, it doesn't need hype. It's one of the biggest things we've ever done in Barrie Wrestling. Plus, we have like a dream heavyweight title matchup. So I think the crowd's going to be buzzing before I say a word.
That's absolutely fair. But before we get into things of the show, of course, I should say the front row has indeed sold out already.
Completely sold out.
Completely sold out now, is it?
Yeah, I think the second row is probably gone as well. These shows do sell out, DP. Do not, if you're in Ontario or if you're flying from Wales to Ontario, don't wait until show night because it will sell out. We don't want you at the door disappointed. Get them in advance. Otherwise, you're taking your chances and you might miss out on a pretty incredible show.
Yeah, indeed, and a very unique show in that as well. But before we get into things at the show as well, I keep saying that, but this is the last time I'll say it. Let's talk about a bit about yourself because this is something I always do with my guests. Obviously, as I said in the intro, you've been with the company since since its opening days. How was it then compared to how it is now?
It's night and day, and it's fun. And just to give your listener, your viewers some background, our very first show was back in November 2014, as you said, and the very first match was actually between two young men who would go on to become icons in Barrie Wrestling. And of course, I'm referring to the man they call El Diablo, Gabriel Fuerza, and the incredible Vaughn Vertigo, who spends a lot of time on your side of the pond, and I think is actually headed back there very soon. And so you had these two pretty scrawny kids, barely out of their teens, and maybe 100 people scattered through the FLCC. It was the definition of a small-time indie show. And if anybody had told me that night, and I had fun, and the crowd was great. In fact, we have still some fans who've been there since that first show. But if anyone had told you that we would be packing the FLCC to the rafters month in and month out for years, I would have laughed. And, quite frankly, that we would bring in top talent from all over North America and from Europe. I would have thought you were kidding, because as I said, it was 60 to 100 people at best. And whenever I see any pictures from that first show, I kind of chuckle and think, boy, we've come a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, obviously, I'm a newer sort of person involved with this. As a fan, I mean, obviously, but going back through the archives and seeing, obviously when you guys first started broadcasting your shows, it's like you said, it is night and day. It is quite a difference you can see on the screen in the quality. Like, the matches are still very good, as they always have been. But in regards to everything else, everything's gone up a notch. And, with time, more effort as well, like, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, why it's not, maybe it's already this, the place to be in Ontario, in the Ontario wrestling scene.
Well, that's what we hear. We hear that a lot, where wrestlers just love coming to Barrie. We have, without exaggeration, the most passionate fans for any place that runs a city regularly. Like, it's unreal how loud our fans get, how invested they are in what happens, which is one of the reasons why this Fallout tournament's going to have them on the edge of their seats. And it's very well run. And you listen to our shows, all, bust on Sean Gibson for being cheap, and especially for his terrible fashion sense and his even worse taste in professional sports teams. But I will give the devil his due. He's built something really special. And, there are a lot of people in the wrestling industry who just take advantage of wrestlers or fans, and Sean's not like that. He approaches the locker room professionally, but like it's part of his family, and he wants people to come to Barrie. He wants the fans to come to Barrie. He wants the wrestlers to come to Barrie, and it's remarkable. It's why we have people. I mentioned Fuerza and Vertigo. They've been doing this for us for a decade, which that's a lifetime in indie wrestling. But we also still, stars like Jody Threat from TNA or Josh Alexander, they still come back to Barrie Wrestling. And, these are people who are performing in front of thousands and thousands of fans. And they come back, like, our arena only holds about 350 people. So they come back not because they're going to get a massive payday, because you can do the math. There's only so many tickets to pay for salaries, but they come back because it's such a great environment, because the fans treat them so well, and they know that they're just going to have a great experience in Barrie. So, hats off to Sean, because that was his goal when he started, and it's something that he has made happen, for 100 and almost 101 shows now.
Yeah, I mean, you say it perfectly. Honestly, I can't add anything more to that, really. Obviously as well, your role is not only as color commentator. You do very other things as well, including being, as I said already, the commissioner of a junior lacrosse league. Are there any similarities between the two sports, between pro wrestling and lacrosse? Because I'm not familiar with lacrosse, just to put it out there.
So it's funny. I mean, obviously they're both very physical sports that require great conditioning and toughness, mental and physical toughness. I think the big difference obviously is lacrosse is very much of a team sport, and we have tag team wrestling. It's very much one. The vast majority of time that you're in that ring, it's one-on-one. Whereas in lacrosse, it's very much about working with everyone else. But you flip around, and the key to a great match, obviously, are two wrestlers who mesh and can really work together to create something special for the fans. So there is a lot of similarities there, and it's interesting because that's actually how Sean Gibson recruited me. And I had been working in lacrosse for many years, and I brought very much of a pro wrestling approach to my announcing, and inspired by guys like Billy Red Lyons and Howard Finkel and Gene Okerlund. I announced lacrosse differently than most people do in Canada. And Sean Gibson was actually a reporter at the time and attending games. We had a professional lacrosse team in Barrie called the Barrie Blizzard. And Sean would attend our games to report. And he came up to me after a game and he said, "Jimbo, I'm thinking about buying a wrestling company." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." He said, "I want you to be the announcer." Okay, and never thought about it again. I didn't hear from him for a long time. And then I just reached out to him to say, "Hey, what's going on with this?" He says, "Glad you contacted me. We're starting November 3rd. Okay, I guess I'm a wrestling announcer now.
So by announcer, do you mean in the same regards to how TCO does it nowadays?
Yeah, so that was my original role, and when we started, it was the ring and who wins. Very quickly, the character of Diamond Jim kind of evolved, and because Sean, although Sean's certainly been an important part of some of the things that have gone on in the ring in terms of feuds and rivalries and stories, he's never wanted to be that promoter who makes the company about himself.
Yeah.
In fact, he's often had to be forced, dragged kicking and screaming to be involved with some things.
Yeah.
So I wound up becoming more involved in interactions with the wrestlers, whether it was contract signings or interviews and things like that, and kind of became more than just a ring announcer and kind of part of the show and doing the hypes at the start of the show, and that sort of just evolved from there. And then we had talked about doing TV for years, and just there were always reasons not to. And the pandemic shut us down. Like I'm not sure what it was like in Wales, but we had, like, you'll remember the WWE running at the Performance Center and their Thunderdome. Well, I mean, we were just a live event company. So Sean came up with this amazing idea to do the All Ontario Cup, which was just a series of great wrestling matches between the best wrestlers in Ontario. And Mike Jeffries, my companion, my broadcast companion, who I've actually also worked hockey and lacrosse with many times over the years, we were asked to do it because we had experience with broadcasting, and it went pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, like, Barrie Wrestling bit the bullet and said, "Okay, like, we're going to start recording our shows, and the rest is history." But I quickly found out that you can't do color commentary for an entire pro wrestling broadcast and do ring announcing. So it was the first few months of trying to do both. That was a lot for old Diamond Jim, and that's why we recruited Tyler, who's often the butt of abuse from us and joking, but I absolutely love him, and he is an incredible ring announcer. In fact, I'd say he's better than I ever was. He's just so slick and nails it every time, and you get to hear him announcing all those big matches now for Barrie Wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And of course, if you want to, if you can go into it, I don't know, but that's also not the only hat that you have, so to speak. You're also the owner of an award-winning digital marketing firm, which I'm very curious to know about. But if you can't share details, that's absolutely fair.
No, it's fine. And I do want to stay focused on Barrie Wrestling because I know that's what your
Yeah, of
viewers
course.
want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the owner of a company called Assisting Youth Social, and we provide digital marketing services for small businesses, nonprofits, charities, and we're just about 11 months older than Barrie Wrestling. So we were founded in December of 2013. We just had our 10th anniversary. And in 2022, oh, thank you, we won the Barrie Chamber of Commerce Marketing and Promotions Award, which was pretty cool for us because we were up against much larger companies, local radio stations, and things like that. And we're kind of like we're in some way, I hadn't actually thought about this before, but we're kind of like Barrie Wrestling in that we're a little company that kind of hits above our weight class, and it's been a fun ride. So, and I'm doing this podcast from the Assisting Youth Social offices. So I came in. You're getting the good equipment today, not my phone or something like that from home.
Fair enough, but absolutely, as you say, this is about Barrie Wrestling. So I'll put a little timestamp as well for those who, for whatever reason, want to skip past this part and just get to the preview side of things.
Well, I can't blame him because what a card! Like it's unreal how Sean Gibson just keeps on delivering more and more great matches and great concepts. Because this Fallout tournament, it's wild. I've never heard of anything like it in indie wrestling.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm so excited. I'm making myself cough.
No, don't worry. I do that same thing. It's just that time of year. So yeah, let's just go straight ahead and get into the preview side of things. So we'll kick off. There's at the moment there's six announced matches. I believe that's all of them. We'll go with the 4 tournament matches first, and then we'll go into the extra ones that have been also in there, including their world title match that we mentioned as well beforehand.
Absolutely. And so I should just note, in case it's not clear, there will be 2 semifinal matches for the tournament on Saturday night as well. So we've got the 4 opening ones that we know of, and then the winners of those matches will advance to the semifinals.
Cool, fantastic. So we'll kick things off with I can't do that. That's making the screen darker. We'll kick things off with a match between polar opposites in regards to crowd appreciation. We have, of course, the rugged man of the Raw family, Grizzly Mac, taking on potentially the fan favorite in Barrie Wrestling. Definitely TCO's bias as well. Have you ever heard his announcements for him? It is, of course, Van Landen that I'm talking about, who's also been on this show. I think it was for the November show. This match, in regards to itself, is the first round matches for the Fallout tournament, which, for those who are not aware, is correct me if I'm wrong, but the winners advance. The losers advance forward, but by losing they win.
Yeah. And it's funny because sometimes you have to explain it 2 or 3 times. But yeah, the stakes are so high. In fact, stakes have rarely been higher in Barrie Wrestling because whoever wins / loses this tournament is gone from Barrie Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
They're out of here. Yeah. So you have 8 of our biggest stars, 8 incredible wrestling talents, and only 7 of them are still going to be in Barrie Wrestling after May 11th. Mm-hmm. So first round matchups, you definitely want to win, because if you win, you're out of the tournament. Your job's safe. If you lose, you're advancing to the semifinals. Semifinals will take place at this show. And if you lose that match as well, so you lose twice in a night, which I think Clay Wilson's the only person in Barrie Wrestling history to lose twice in one night. But maybe that'll be, if we're lucky, that'll be repeated. But if you lose twice, then you're headed to the finals on May 11th. Here come the Wolves is that show. And the loser of that match, you're out of here, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
Um,
the. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna carry on basically and just say how I spoke to Mike Jeffries before this as well. He gave me a link to something because I wasn't too familiar with the concept. That is of this borrowed from the International Wrestling Revolution Group's IWRG Ruleta de la Muerte, which is the Roulette of Death, which is a similar concept to this tournament, but the only difference is the finals there was a Lucha de Apuestas match, which is like a bet, like heavy hair, mask v mask sort of deal. Um, but obviously in this case it's losers fired. Uh, but yeah, I mean this match itself, it's got potential. I mean,
Oh,
this is one of those weird things where you don't really know what to do because the aim of the game is you don't want to win. Win.
by losing.
Yeah.
So but yeah, like just you're looking at this match, you've got two of the hottest young stars in Ontario wrestling. So Van Landen, as you said, he could be the most popular wrestler in Barrie. He's a local guy. He's got such high energy. I mean, this guy, he when he's sleeping, his heart's still pounding faster than you and I if we're running full speed. The guy is just they call him a barn burner for a reason. He is nonstop energy, nonstop excitement. The fans adore him, and I believe he's a future champion in Barrie, provided he can keep his job. But that's a big provided because he's going up against a fellow I think is maybe the best prospect in Ontario right now, and that's Grizzly Mac. And Grizzly, I mean, he's a giant of a man. I'm a big guy, and Grizzly makes me look tiny. He towers above me. His shoulders are he's about like this, and he is so tough. I really wouldn't want to be in Van Landen's shoes because usually when you got fans behind you, like Van does, you can do anything. But he's going up against a mean, angry mountain of a man who can also back it up in the ring. And I hate to say this because I love Van Landen as much as the fans do, but I think it's Grizzly Mac winning that match, and Van Landen's going to find his back against the wall in the semifinals. And I hope I'm wrong. And I know, I couldn't imagine Barrie Wrestling without Van Landen. And he's only been around for a few years, but he's become just a critical part of the organization. But Grizzly Mac, how do you beat a man like that, DP?
I I mean I'm no professional wrestler. I couldn't tell you, but I'd assume you just start low and work your way up. Just take out the legs and work your way up. I guess. Um, Obviously he wants to win because you don't want to be you don't want to advance basically.
Well, Van Landen, and he's popular everywhere,
hmm
but he's most popular in Barrie. Like I've seen Van Landen at other shows, and the fans love him. But his relationship with Barrie wrestling fans
hmm
is next level. And that would be probably for anyone in this tournament, the one who would take that loss the hardest would be Van Landen because of his special relationship with our fans. This is his hometown wrestling company. Like, can you imagine getting fired from your own hometown promotion?
Precisely. Yeah, I was gonna say like you only have one home promotion.
One last thing about this match, because you can never ever discount the impact of the royal family, and whether it's a guy like Musso or Kylo or whoever, they're always going to be lurking in the background. And Musso in particular is really devious, a real pain in the neck, and Van Landen's got to be, he's got to have eyes in the back of his head because you never know what the royal family is going to do to get one of their members a win.
Precisely. Yeah, and then always someone to look out for because as we know already, according to the graphic, Musso might already be out there. Um, and not to mention all the other additional external impact of potentially interference by Myung Jae Lee.
So that's a really great point, DP. As your viewers may be aware, Myung Jae Lee was the longest reigning Three Pistols champion in Barrie Wrestling history. Three Pistols title is a lot like our Intercontinental or U.S. Championship. He lost that title in a triple threat match to Von Vertigo and Van Landen. And for whatever reason, Myung Jae Lee has focused all the blame and all the rage on Van Landen. He hasn't taken responsibility himself. He doesn't blame Vertigo, who's the guy who actually took the title for him. It's 100% focused on Van Landen, and he's been out for revenge. I have so much respect for Myung Jae Lee. Pound for pound, he may be the toughest competitor in Barrie Wrestling. His striking ability is off the charts, but he's not been the same since losing that title. And you're right, I've been focused on the royal family, but Van Landen's got to worry about Myung Jae Lee as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're Van Landen, you're put in a tricky situation. That you've already got the target on your back from Myung Jae Lee, and not to mention the added influence by the royal family. Should they get involved? Not necessarily to say that Grizzly Mac needs it, because as we said already, he's a mountain of a man. But anything can happen, honestly. But I'd be more worried about Myung Jae Lee than the royal family, because, like I said already, Grizzly's there and he's enough by himself.
Said the odds are stacked against Van Landen, and man, that would just crush our fans if he wound up losing / winning this tournament.
Yeah. What do we call it at this point? So yeah, we will move on now to another one of the first round tournament matches. We've mentioned him already, so we might as well just go on to him. Myung Jae Lee is also in this tournament, and he's taken on another one of the fan favourites here in Pretty Ricky Wilde.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Ricky is part of the royal family. Hesitantly, I should add. He and Puff are no longer a team anymore, which is obviously heartbreaking to the audience and to people who watch like me abroad. And I mean, if I'm looking at this match from a booking perspective, or even booking, just like a viewer, sorry, not booking, I find it hard to say that Ricky's gonna win, because as we said already, like Myung Jae Lee is just one hell of an athlete, and pound probably the best striker in Barrie. Like, also one of those guys that you just know are gonna make it big one day in the pro wrestling scene. So yeah, I mean, I was finding it hard to rule out Pretty Ricky.
Yeah, I apologize. We froze again. I'm not sure what's going on with the internet, but I blame Mike Jeffries. Yeah, even though he's not here, but
he's his spirit.
Yeah, it's his fault. Just like everything that happened on his wedding night, totally his fault. So, anyway, Myung Jae Lee, as you said, pound for pound, probably the best striker in indie wrestling. And so tough. Like that's the you see wrestlers who can dish it out, but they can't necessarily take a beating. Myung Jae Lee, during his Three Pistols title reign, faced absolute legends, some of the toughest, baddest, meanest, hardest strikers, and he somehow beat them all. So yeah, the odds probably aren't great for Pretty Ricky, but Pretty Ricky has more heart than any wrestler I have known. I've been doing this for a decade, and holy smoke, Pretty Ricky, you can beat him down, and somehow he has the intestinal fortitude to come back. And he has been the underdog in almost every match he's ever had in Barrie Wrestling, and he's won a fair share of those.
Yeah.
He finds that extra level. He particularly thrives on the fans' reaction, and they just push him to beat wrestlers that on paper he has no business beating. But here's the thing, and opponents and fans underestimate what an incredible technical wrestler Pretty Ricky is, because he's flamboyant. He's larger than life. He's blowing kisses. He's got outrageous outfits, but that man can flat out wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
And if Myung Jae Lee thinks that this is an easy match, it's a comedy match, he's going to be going on to the next round, because Pretty Ricky can match Myung Jae Lee hold for hold, move for move. And you keep an eye on that match. This match is going to be one of the sleeper picks for the best match on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's the thing I always say about Myung Jae Lee matches, is that if it's not the best on the card, it's going to be a sleeper one. Because it's
Absolutely.
just something about Ricky, there's something about Myung Jae, and I just think they're going to burn the house down in a good way.
Completely agree. Well, with Ricky, you can't be too sure. Like, he might actually burn the house down. In reality, I mean, the man shot Santa Claus one year, so
yeah, that is very true. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I find it hard to look past Myung Jae Lee. You've said that you think Ricky, so is that right?
yeah, I'm going with Ricky in this one.
Yeah, absolutely fair. So now we move on to one where, if you've watched my reviews, you know I've not been the biggest fan of either of these guys. So it's gonna be a chance for both of them. I mean, they both up their game since I started watching Barrie Wrestling. But so we go to the other half of the former Triple Dragon in Puff, taking on the protege of Vaughn Vertigo, Rajan Husher.
Yeah.
And so before, this is a match where these two guys are people that I've not been fans of particularly. But as time's gone on, I've seen them grow, I've seen them do better, and I've learned to just develop more of a like for them. So I'm more leaning towards Puff winning this one.
There we go.
Oh, sorry. Did I freeze again?
No, we froze again, but I think it's probably because you were speaking ill of Puff, and Puff is one of the icons. But yeah, Puff, we were talking about Ricky being a larger than life figure. I mean, Puff in every way is larger than life, and he's certainly unique in professional wrestling, but he's incredibly talented. He has an amazing relationship with our fans, and you always know when you see a Puff match, you're going to see a spectacle.
Yeah,
and we over the years, so many of the most memorable moments in Barrie Wrestling history have involved Puff. We had and it's on YouTube. I encourage you and all your viewers to check it out. But we have annual shows in downtown Barrie for Canada Day, which is our our 4th of July type of event. And before the pandemic, we had a Falls Count Anywhere in downtown Barrie match between Puff, Pretty Ricky, and Holden Albright. And this match legitimately covered 7 city blocks. And, they wound up going down into the lake and through duck poop and into a porta potty and everything else. There's so many great moments with Puff in Barrie Wrestling. Like, when I was talking about Van Landen, how I can't imagine Barrie Wrestling without him. I mean, Puff, a very scary individual in Rajan Husher. There's something wrong there, and Vaughn Vertigo has got in this disturbed young man's head and turned him into his own weapon. I don't get intimidated very easily at all, but when I see that young man stare, he just stares through you. And we've seen he will do anything to win a match. He doesn't care if he injures an opponent. He doesn't care if he injures himself. He thinks he's creating art, and the key component of his art is to get the win. But I got to go with Puff in this one. A very even matchup, but I think Puff's coming out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I personally, I can't see a world in that Puff loses. And I'm not discrediting Rajan in any way though by saying that. At least I don't think I am. If I am, I do apologise. But I
He's
just
giving up 250 pounds. You
yeah
know, like that's a big gap. You know,
yeah
you've 220. Puff's 420 pounds, and Rajan's probably about 200. So, Puff is like two Rajan ushers.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Rajan fighting to himself.
Yeah.
um. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm on I'm on Puff's side to win this, and Rajan will proceed forward. Um. And then we go to the final first round match, which is one that I'm not too clued in on, only because I'm not too familiar with one of the participants. Um, so we have, of course, everyone's favorite person to hate right now. That's not part of the Raw family. We have Clay Wilson, of course, part of a top tier talent, the quote unquote leader of top tier talent now, taking on the recently returning Golden Gun, Mark Wheeler. And like I said, I can't speak too much on Mark Wheeler because I don't know too much about him. But Clay Wilson is someone who is not afraid to get his hands dirty and not afraid to break the rules when he can. Not he's not someone who will outright just break the rules. Like he will do it if he can get away with it. Um,
Well,
so
we'll come back to Clay Wilson because the less I have to say about that creep, the better. But let me talk about Mark Wheeler, and
mhm.
so Mark Wheeler he was out for a very long time due to a serious injury. He's just made his return to Barrie Wrestling. Mark Wheeler, if you think the fans hate Clay Wilson now, you should have seen Mark Wheeler when he was Barrie Wrestling heavyweight champion. The fans despised him, and he despised the fans. And the thing was, though, he was a heck of a champion. And during that title reign, the fans started to gain respect for him, and they still didn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
But night after night, he would show up and he would have just incredible matches against talented competitors, challengers from all over North America. You saw Mark Wheeler grow a little bit more. And by the end of his reign, like I can't think of anyone who looked, felt, acted, and wrestled like a heavyweight champion than Mark Wheeler. Like it was remarkable. You saw him, and he was always talented, good-looking guy. He can talk, but during his title reign, he went from being, one of many guys who, are fit and good looking and can talk to becoming, the absolute, prototypical champion. He's so good he's so good when the bell rings. He can bring speed. He brings a lot of strength. He's a powerhouse. This is a guy who wasn't, huge before the pandemic. And whereas other guys sat around, watched TV, or drank beers with Diamond Jim, he was working out nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's a wall. He is an absolute specimen.
Yeah.
And I personally think Mark Wheeler is the favorite in every single match he steps into. He's that good, DP. And you're in for a treat because over the next few months, provided he doesn't win/lose the Fallout tournament, you're going to see a lot more of Mark Wheeler, and you're going to be blown away because he is the total package. We've seen Barrie Wrestling wrestlers go on, to Daniel Garcia to AEW, Josh Alexander and Jody Threat to TNA. Mark my words, Mark Wheeler is going to be another guy who we're going to see on TV and say, we watched him in Barrie Wrestling, and we knew he was going to be a future star. His opponent is someone who, I'm supposed to be unbiased. I'm supposed to be balanced, but Clay Wilson is just a jerk. Yeah, he hates. I don't even know why he comes to Barrie, because he hates it. He gets a foul mood the minute he gets within 10 kilometers of our city, and he's scowling, and just he doesn't like our fans. He doesn't like our crew. He only likes himself. And occasionally he might like other members of top tier talent, but that kind of depends on the day of the week.
Yeah.
But I can say all those things, and he's a Buffalo Bandits fan, which is just a really that's like a Sean Gibson level of sports team support. But I got to give him his due. He is one of the best technical wrestlers I've ever seen. And you say, like, he's not afraid to cheat, but a lot of times he doesn't even bother because he's better than the person across the ring from him. And, he's got an incredible ground game. He is exceptional at targeting his opponent's weaknesses. And, there's a reason why, he was brought into top tier talent by John Atlas originally when the group was formed. It's because Clay Wilson, while he is an absolute jerk and a miserable one at that, he is a top tier professional wrestler. And Mark Wheel, I'm sure Mark always scouts his opponents, watches a lot of tape. This match, I'm gonna take the coward's way out here, DP. I'm not picking a winner here because I don't know who's gonna win this match. They're both that good.
Yeah, and I mean, I can only agree on one side of that because I'm not familiar with Mark Wheeler. I've seen one match of his. That was the last Barrie Wrestling show, where he did impress me a lot. But of course, that's only one performance. Whereas obviously you've seen a lot more than I have. But I mean, I might be a coward too. I don't know. It's just because I have that unpredictable element for me with Mark Wheeler, and it's just I don't know fully what he brings to the table yet.
Well, let me
Go on.
before we move on, let me tell you about Wheeler, because you've probably heard Gabriel Fuerza been described as the Mr. Everything of Barrie Wrestling, which is a name I gave him years ago because he was the first person to win. There are two other men who have actually won that triple crown of titles in Barrie Wrestling. Von Vertigo joined that group a few months ago when he won the Three Pistols title. Mark Wheeler is the third. He's done it all in Barrie Wrestling, and the gold doesn't lie.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, even upon hearing that, my gut instinct says to go Wheeler, but there's still the element of Clay Wilson involved, and just what he could do potentially. Because Wheeler's, he's come back from an injury. It doesn't necessarily mean he's completely healed.
Absolutely. And Clay Wilson, I guarantee, is going to target Mark Wheeler's weaknesses. And this is a guy who's had shoulder issues, knee issues. Wilson's going to be all over that because Wilson loves to win. And you can't count out the fact that his buddies and top tier talent stablemates, Australian Takeover, are at the FLCC on Saturday. They will be in the house, and we've seen time and time again, top tier talent backs up top tier talent, and that just comes down to a numbers game.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think we've covered bases with that one. So let's just go straight on ahead to the extra match we got added on here, which is for not for anything. Sorry, it's a tag match. So I should add. We had the guys that you just mentioned already, Australian Takeover, Kaz Jordan and Julian Ward, taking on the team of Alexia Nicole and Gabriel Fuerza. Firstly, wow.
I can't wait for this one, DP. It's Australian Takeover. They've been part of Barrie Wrestling for not quite a year, and they've just blown me away. And I don't understand why they associate with Clay Wilson, but You have, that classic tag team combination of the big tough guy and then the guy who can fly around the ring. Like they're all, I've compared them on the air to the Hart Foundation. Obviously, physically they aren't there's no anvil there, but you've got toughness and speed. You got the rich kid who can go, and then you've got the barroom brawler, and that is just. It's a proven combination, for decades in professional wrestling. That's a combination that works. That's Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. That's they're incredible. I have nothing but great things to say about what they do in the ring. I just wish they'd get away from Clay Wilson. But their opponents, DP, you have the most decorated star in Barrie Wrestling history, someone who's done it all and almost done it twice over in Gabriel Fuerza, really the heart and soul of Barrie Wrestling, with the 2022 Pure Diamond Award winner, Alexia Nicole, who's won a lot of gold in Barrie as well. These are arguably two of the best wrestlers on the entire planet. Mm-hmm. And this isn't a random combination. Your viewers may not know this, but they've been teaming together and actually facing off against each other since before Barrie Wrestling even existed. They came up together along with Von Vertigo, and their histories are intertwined. And in fact, when Von Vertigo was injured, Alexia Nicole and Fight or Flight were the tag team champions in Barrie. It was Alexia Nicole who stepped in to take Von Vertigo's spot on that team. So, Australian TakeOver aren't just getting two random great wrestlers as their opponents. This is an experienced team, and I mean, if you watch one tag team match on IWTV later this month when our show's up, make it that one, because Katie bar the door, it's gonna be amazing.
It absolutely will. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's one of those things where I can't pick a winner. You've got two different aspects of tag team combat here. You've got an established tag team who've been tagging for a while in Australian TakeOver, and you've got the other team who aren't necessarily a tag team, but they're very close in regards to that they're good friends. And so in that aspect, do they know each other better than a tag team would?
Yeah, this is a close one, but I'm not gonna back out like on that last match. I'm gonna go with Fuerza and Nicole, not because Australian TakeOver aren't an elite tag team. They absolutely are, but Gabriel Fuerza is on the run of a lifetime right now. Gabriel Fuerza, and not just in Barrie Wrestling, all across North America, he has been facing the best talent in the entire world. And more times than not, those stars are leaving with the L.
Yeah.
Gabriel Fuerza, could be the hottest wrestler on the planet right now. And I don't care, who you bring into that ring. Fuerza's the favorite to win. And Alexia Nicole, she's been on a streak of her own. So I got to go with the hot hand. And, it's tight. And it wouldn't surprise me if ATO pulls it off, because they are such an incredible tag team. But I'm going with Fuerza and Nicole.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. Also, another thing that I'm considering in my head is this an unofficial tag team contendership match for tag titles?
I think you have to. Sean Gibson's out of his mind if he doesn't match this team up with the tag team champs. Whoever wins this, in my mind, is the number one contender, and I can't imagine anyone would think otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think, yeah, Fuerza and Alexia, but that's where my initial thought was, and it's not a dig at all at ATO. It's just I feel there's perhaps more for them there because they've got that personal beef with the Raw family.
Imagine how huge of a victory this would be for ATO. They've made a name for themselves in Barrie Wrestling, but if they beat Gabriel Fuerza and Alexia Nicole, that is sending a message to every single team in Ontario and beyond that ATO it has arrived and ATO is legit. So, the stakes are very high, and that is, that type of win would really launch ATO to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, saying that, I'm still gonna go with Alexia and Pereza, and I think it's just the way my mind works. I can't really explain it otherwise. um,
I agree with you. They're my pick as well, but it's close.
yeah, it's definitely hard to rule out ATO in this match. It's just a case of in my head, I can picture Alexia wanting revenge at Shiloh, and Pereza wanting to go at Carl Boone again, and I think
I hear you.
I think there's a bit more
I
there.
get it.
But before we get into what I'm going to assume is the main event, um, we do have the potential two semi-final matches that are going to be happening as well for the tournament. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be in there, but let's just fantasy book. Why not?
Yeah, and I did actually have the brackets, and when we were having the internet problems, I closed all my windows. But if you bear with me, I'll pull it back up.
Hey you. Yeah, you. Do you like this video? There is a button. It's a very sexy button. It says subscribe on it. I wish I could click on it, but YouTube won't let me. Damn fuckers.
We'll call it the Aurelia bracket. Has well, actually, we can't call it the Aurelia bracket because Van's in the other one. So we'll call it the Angus bracket. Puff versus Rajan, and then MJL versus Ricky. So, like on that side, boy, like we could actually see Triple Dragon face each other in the semifinals.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Conversely, we could see Rajan and Young Jay Lee. And although we talked about how focused Myung has been on Van Landen, Rajan is the in the pocket of Von Vertigo, the man who did take Young Jay Lee's title from him. So that's a really interesting matchup. But I think I had Rajan and Young Jay Lee losing in the first round, so they'd face each other. The other bracket, Mark Wheeler versus Clay Wilson, Grizzly Mac versus Van Landen. I had Van Landen losing and had a pick 'em there. So, we talked about how the odds are stacked against Van Landen. He's got to face Grizzly Mac in the first round. If he loses that match, excuse me, he's facing either Wheeler, a guy who's done it all, or Wilson, a guy who's willing to do it all. And I think, sorry.
that's all right.
Van Landen is, the underdog in either one of those matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a tricky situation to look at. Thinking on it, and I've had time to think about this since we've been talking about other matches as well, since going past it. Could Van Landen, despite being a fan favourite, despite being full of heart, could he interfere on behalf of Myung Jae Lee because he wants to beat Myung Jae Lee? He doesn't want Myung Jae Lee to leave.
That's a fascinating scenario, and Van Landen, he's driven by adrenaline and emotion, and I could see he's an honorable man. He plays by the rules. He believes in fair play, but he also has a temper, and he definitely wants to deal with, and he also likes to look after his own business.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants that opportunity to deal with Myung Jae Lee face to face and settle it in the ring. So I hadn't thought of that, but I wouldn't count it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my initial prediction was Puff wins and Myung Jae wins. So that would be Rajan and Pretty Ricky in the semi final, and on the other side it would be uh did I say one? Oh yeah, Van Landen it would be, and I didn't say one for Wheeler and Wilson. So I'm gonna say let's say Wilson. So Landon and Wilson and Rajan and Ricky. Um, I would personally think Ricky would probably get the win here. Rajan is someone who, to my understanding, is still relatively new to the wrestling scene, and it's something that we've said before is that wrestling to him is art. He's creating his masterpieces in the ring and also on canvas. Um, and in that, I think there might be an element in that he gets distracted. And Ricky himself is someone who knows how to distract and knows how to take advantage of someone's lack of concentration or someone's lapse in judgment or something like that.
True. Very
So
true. Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I'd go with Pretty Ricky in that scenario, but I want to get back to and our first round picks didn't lead to this. But can you imagine if Puff has to face his very best friend, Pretty Ricky, in the semifinals, knowing, these two best friends, knowing that if they win, they are stacking the odds against their best friend because that person's has only got one chance to save their job.
yeah.
Like, imagine if you were Puff or Pretty Ricky and you were faced with that scenario where you got to save your job and you got to save your paycheck, but you've got to go through your best friend to do that. Like, wow, that would be something.
That would absolutely be something. And you've got to think as well, the royal family are out there. They're looking at this thinking, they're rubbing their hands together. The chance to potentially get rid of Puff, get him off their hands.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what the royal family would do because right now, with Pretty Ricky having to be a member, they're able to torture him and toy with him and mess with his life. They don't have that control over Puff. And I could and how would Ricky feel if the royal family interfered on his behalf to cost Puff that match? Like, Ricky would be devastated.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is probably one of the most effective ways to torture someone emotionally.
100%. So let's hope that both of them win their first round matchups and are out of the tournament because boy, that would be hard on our fans.
Absolutely. And then we go to the other half of this, where I had it as Van Landen and Clay Wilson. There's obviously the scenario in that Van Landen does beat Grizzly Mac as well, and then it could be, and maybe the shock factor of Wilson beating Wheeler, and that has Wheeler and Mac, which I think is personally that's quite a challenge for Wheeler, but Wheeler could overcome that personally, in my opinion. But going back to Landon and Wilson, again, a polar opposites you've got there in regards to absolute fan favorite, absolute fan hated. Again, you've got I keep saying it because the polar opposites. You've got like a man of honor, a man who will do what he thinks is right, a man who is fueled by his actions and his want and his desire to put on a good show for the audience, but also keep his job. And on the other side, you got Wilson, who wants the same goal, but just in a different way. So he doesn't care about the audience put on a good show particularly, but he cares about his job.
Yeah, it's a fascinating matchup. I think I've talked about how in the other scenario, Van Landen's the big underdog, and I still think he is here. Only, and this is what Clay Wilson. I talked earlier about his technical prowess, but he's also a master at getting people off of their game. And I Van Landen can still get rattled. He can get fired up. He can lose his temper. And you know, with that pressure on him, if Clay Wilson starts the trash talking, starts the bullying, starts the nonsense, that could rattle a young guy like Van Landen. And I hope he could withstand the pressure, but it's a lot of pressure for a young guy who's only a few years into this business. Whereas Wilson, he doesn't get rattled.
No, very true. Very calm. Well, I say calm. Very I say collected. Probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah. So, and before we go on to the huge title match, I want to look at that other scenario: Grizzly Mac versus Mark Wheeler. Wow, and you alluded to it. Wheeler, probably along with there are three guys who I think could actually match power with Grizzly Mac, not necessarily match size. Two of them are in the heavyweight championship match. The third is Mark Wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
Mark is strong enough that he can actually match Grizzly at his own game, and that's where the experience comes in. So, Grizzly Mac, he walks into a match and he's the favorite 99 times out of 100. But the time that he steps across the ring from Mark Wheeler, that's the one time that Grizzly Mac's not the favorite. I would love to see that match because I think Grizz, we've only seen glimpses of his potential. To see him square off against a legend like Mark Wheeler, take my money right now, Sean Gibson. That's a match I want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing about the tournament as well. There's 8 people, but there's so many different scenarios that can play out. Like, it all depends on the day of the match, what happens, does desperation fall into effect here? Does it come to a point where people get so worried about potentially losing their jobs in Barrie that they do something that goes against their values? Do they just get a chair and try to call a DQ? Do they try and manipulate the ref to try and get something to go their way? Like, there's a lot of different aspects here, and not to mention the guys in this tournament that are not afraid to break the rules.
But let me flip it around though, because I think the psychology can work the other way. You've got someone who's not afraid to break the rules. They can't afford to get disqualified, because if you get disqualified, your job's on the line. If Clay Wilson gets disqualified in a match in November or September or whatever, he gets a smaller share of the win. He doesn't get the winner's purse, but he's coming back the next month.
Mm-hmm.
If you get yourself disqualified in one of these matches, you're one step closer to getting fired.
Yeah.
So, to someone who's normally willing to grab a chair, so it's fascinating. It absolutely can work both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Desperation for someone who normally follows the rules, but hesitation for someone who normally breaks them.
Absolutely. And I know you don't talk about him, but with Clay Wilson, can the Kempenfest Cup be something that, if he was to lose the tournament, would he lose that as well? Or could he use that to sort of cash in to get another contract?
I don't know. And I'm going to have, I don't make the rules in Barrie Wrestling. I just get to complain about them. That's a fascinating question. And I wish I had an answer for your viewers. I would assume that the Kempenfeld Cup is ironclad, and he would at least have a window to use it. But fired is fired. Mm-hmm. So would it pass on to another member of top tier talent? I don't know, but I will try to find out.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's one of the many wondrous possibilities of a tournament like this and the individuals involved in the said tournament. But of course, now that that's out of the way, now we've got through the Fallout tournament, we come to a very big main event with two very big men for a very big title. And that's the theme here. It's very big.
I think we should say big about 10 more times, and that will perhaps give your viewers an understanding of how epic this is.
Yeah.
So, a bit of backstory. John Atlas has been a member of Barrie Wrestling since almost the start. And he is, without a doubt, and no hype here, he is the most accomplished athlete ever to step into a Barrie Wrestling ring and ever to step into most indie wrestling rings he's ever been in. So I don't know if your viewers are familiar with Canadian football. It's a slightly different version of what's played in the NFL. So it's not soccer, it's not footy, it's gridiron, I think you guys call it. So he was a standout Canadian football player throughout high school and university. So our university championship is known as the Vanier Cup. It's a very prestigious trophy that's been awarded for over a century. He won that. He competed in our professional football league, the Canadian Football League. He was also a standout rugby player, and I know there are a lot of great rugby players in Wales. So, that might make me telling you that might make John the biggest baby face in Wales, because he was a national level rugby player, arm wrestling champion, and a hell of a professional wrestler. He's actually, it's incredible. He was working as a bouncer years ago and was shot and survived being shot. He survived multiple bouts with cancer and somehow stayed an elite level athlete who wins no matter what the sport is. He wins in football, he wins in rugby, he wins in arm wrestling. I guarantee, I don't think he's ever played lacrosse in his life, but if he did, he'd probably win championships in lacrosse.
Yeah.
And just, he was an incredible Barrie Wrestling champion, not popular. The fans did not like him much. He, of course, founded top tier talent that we've talked about. But as much as the fans hate John Atlas and his, Mike Jeffries would call it arrogance, I call it confidence. He's got the confidence of a winner. The fans, even though they hated him, they respected him because he is a winner.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a big, strong guy. He's got, I would say, the best drop kick in indie wrestling. It's a thing of beauty. So he can move. He's not just a big, strong guy, even though he is a big, strong guy. So tremendous. The pedigree there is off the charts. Clutch Jesse V, who's been our champion for about 4 months now, 5 months, is every bit as big as John Atlas. I'd say he's maybe a bit stronger than John Atlas. But Clutch Jesse V, despite being, a walking condominium, flies around the ring and does moves that no man his size should be capable of doing. He defies the laws of gravity, physics, and mathematics. Jesse V doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
No one should be that good. No one should be that naturally talented. And this is an unreal matchup. And I gotta say, and I have so much respect for Jesse V. And when he faced Josh Alexander in Barrie Wrestling last year, you could see that this was the next big star in indie wrestling emerging. And I said it on that broadcast, Jesse V is inevitable. It was inevitable that he would become Barrie Wrestling heavyweight champion, but he is facing off with a man who just wins. A man who studies his opponents the way, people study for PhDs with less commitment than how John Atlas tackles an opponent. John Atlas will know every move that Jesse V is going to do before Jesse V knows he's going to do it. John Atlas will have every single scenario mapped out. He sees the ring differently than any wrestler I've ever known. And Jesse V, the biggest, baddest man in professional wrestling, is actually the underdog in this match. That said, John Atlas is used to being the big dog. John Atlas is used to being able to have his way with opponents. John Atlas can, even though he outthinks his opponents, he relies on that strength. He relies on being more athletic. John Atlas, for maybe the first time in his career, won't be the best athlete in the ring. And the winners are the fans, because this match, it's one of the biggest matches we could have in Barrie Wrestling, and I'm just so stoked. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I literally can't say anything else that you haven't already said. These two will absolutely tear each other apart. This is not going to be it's not going to be a Carl Boo situation for Jesse V, where he wins in like 12 seconds. Like this is not that sort of match. Like John Atlas is also not going to be. They're not going to be someone who uses brass knucks, at least not straight away. And with this match as well, I look back at when Atlas won the belt. Jesse V was in that match.
He was.
So Atlas has already got a win over Jesse V. But to put it in like a numerical, to write it down sort of scale, is that something that plays on Jesse V's mind? Does he want redemption? Does he want vengeance?
I think he does, because Jesse V is a proud man.
Mm-hmm.
And he only has a couple of losses in his Barrie Wrestling career. I mean, he had a ridiculous undefeated streak. I know, even though he was very proud of how he took Josh Alexander to the limit, I know he wants Josh Alexander again. He knows he can beat Josh Alexander, and he was that close. And I know that drives him. So, I think you're 100% right. Knowing that John Atlas was the better man in that match when Atlas became champion, that's going to motivate Jesse. But, it can go two ways in that, John Atlas, if he thinks that's the same clutch Jesse V that he was a year ago, he's wrong, because and Jesse was already at the top of his game. But between his match with Josh Alexander and his match very recently against Brent Banks, Jesse V's somehow gotten even better. What we saw, like Brent Banks, and I know he's traveled to the UK a number of times and wrestled over there. So some of your viewers may know Brent. He is just like, he's a Will Ospreay level of aerial assassin, and Jesse had to change his game to beat Brent, and Brent brought it all. Like, they had doors, they had chairs, like everything. But Jesse adapted. He grew, and he overcame that. Mm-hmm. He took Josh Alexander to the limit. Jesse V is not the same person he was the last time John Atlas looked across the ring at him. And although I wouldn't expect John to underestimate him, if he's preparing for that, Jesse, this title reign's going to continue, DP.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I'm going to go ahead and throw out a scenario that you won't like, the Barrie Wrestling fans won't like, Mike Jeffries won't like, Tyler won't like, Sean won't like, probably. Both Atlas and Jesse V are going to tear them apart so much that neither man is going to be able to be standing at the end of that match. So much so that is the perfect time.
Oh, don't say it. I don't want to hear it. Go ahead, DP.
Clay Wilson, being the opportunist that he is, cashes in his chance at the world title, or say chance at the title and uses it on the world title. With Jesse V and John Atlas both out at this point, easy pickings.
You've ruined my day, DP. It's WrestleMania Sunday, and you've ruined my whole day. The thought of this epic match between two of the greatest champions we've ever seen in Barrie, ending with Clay Wilson walking out with the Barrie Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. I mean, I should end this call right now. You're a mean man, and not a courteous host. But you're right. That is a scenario which absolutely could play out, and it would be a nightmare scenario because he is absolutely the type of opportunist that will, because Clay, and I talked about how much respect I have for Clay Wilson, the wrestler, because he really, really is talented.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Clay Wilson knows that Jesse V is a next level athlete and really a phenom. And this is the key. He's been in top tier talent with John Atlas. He knows how if he ever had to face John Atlas in a match that was scheduled in advance, he knows he's not beating John Atlas. John Atlas knows Clay Wilson better than Clay Wilson knows himself.
Mm-hmm.
But his chance, where he's not the underdog against those two alpha dogs, is the Kempenfeld Cup. And man, I hope he doesn't watch this show. He's probably already got the idea, but I'm going to blame you if that happens, DP. And I'm going to come for you.
Good luck finding me in Wales.
I wouldn't even remember to drive on the right side of the streets, so I think you're safe.
I mean, if in an unfortunate case that you were on the wrong side of the road and involved in some sort of accident, at least you're at the NHS. That is free healthcare.
Same here. Yeah.
But of course, yeah. I mean, a scenario that none of us wants to happen, myself included. I like Clay Wilson, but I'd much rather see Jesse V or John Atlas leave for the title. But yeah, I mean that brings an end to the show preview. This is set to be one of perhaps Barrie Wrestling's best cards to date. And I, as a fan, not even as a podcaster or as a reviewer, I look forward to this so much.
And I know I speak on behalf of all of the BW crew, several of whom, as we talked about at the start, have come on to the HCW show. We're really grateful for your support and for spreading the word into new territories for us. We are a tiny little organization in a small town. Like, this is known as cottage country. We're not a big city like Toronto or anything like that. And we've been doing our thing for almost 10 years, and it's really cool to know that there are fans in Wales and in New York and in Germany and other places who now pay attention and watch those shows on IWTV every month, and you've helped do that, DP. And I know it was an accident how you found us, and it's a great story. But excuse me. And I promise not to cough like this in the broadcast. Don't worry, man. Your ears won't be assaulted. But we're so grateful for your support of our little wrestling company. And you're right. This is going to be a heck of a show. I can't wait for it, and I can't wait to find out what you think about it when you get to watch it on IWTV in a week or two. It'll be a couple weeks. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's shaping to be a great card. I look forward to it. I love the concept of the tournament as well. Not the fact that someone's going to lose their job, like not that bit, but just the general concept.
Unless it's Clay Wilson, I'm totally okay if it's Clay Wilson.
Yeah, that is valid. That is valid.
So before we wrap up, I got a couple quick questions for you, DP. Just my own curiosity. Oh. So you've been watching Barrie Wrestling for a little while now. What is your favorite Barrie Wrestling match that you've seen?
Are we going off what I've sort of seen as it happened, or going back through the catalogs.
Any Barrie Wrestling match that you've watched?
So this is something that I said recently as well to a friend of mine who I was trying to get into watching this, but they didn't have IWTV. I was like, I'll give you the accounts. But it would probably be Election Nicole and Trit 7 from Karma.
That was my match of the year pick, and it's funny. And Mike, Sean, and I have like a group chat to keep us sort of prepared for shows, and we were talking like Trent Seven. Oh my! Like what an incredible professional wrestler, and so accomplished all around the world. And Alexia, was that close to beating him. What a match that! And I was privileged to watch a lot of great matches in Barrie Wrestling last year, but that was my favorite. Tremendous choice. You have great taste in
Thank you.
professional wrestling matches, DP, because that was
Just don't
unreal.
ask me my favorite 2001 match.
So I listen to DP fans. Go and watch that match. It's on IWTV. Trent Seven versus Alexia Nicole. It's exactly what professional wrestling should be.
Yeah, precisely. And if I had to throw out a second one as a second choice, I'm not going off the list you guys put out. It's just a coincidence. Gabriel Fuerza and Reverso in the cage.
Yeah, and that's probably Mike Jeffrey's favorite match to have called in his career, and I mean he nailed it. And I got it. I basically spend 2 hours just making fun of Mike Jeffries while people wrestle in front of us. But I really want to give him a shout out because he is an exceptional play-by-play guy, and what he did in that final match between Fuerza and Reverso, he elevated that match to really something special. And don't get me wrong, the two men in the ring did 95% of the work, maybe even 99.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sitting there and I was listening to Mike just tell this story of these two rivals, and incredible match. But I think that's a match that I think it was Mike Jeffrey's best play-by-play work, and we've only ever had 2 cage matches in Barrie Wrestling history, and the first one was not very good, and that one is probably one of our 5 best matches in history. Fuerza, you can find him all over the internet right now because he's red hot. Reverso probably isn't nearly as well known with your viewers. He's from the east coast of Canada. What an incredible wrestler he is. He's someone you got to check out, whether it's on IWTV or YouTube. Look for Reverso because man, he is something. He's really there's a handful of hidden gems in my mind in Canadian wrestling, and Reverso is one of them. Like, you got to seek that guy out. He is so talented.
Mm-hmm.
But that match, yeah, hell yeah, that's great, DP.
But yeah, that's all I had for that. You said you had a couple of questions to ask, or was that just that?
Yeah, last one's really easy.
Oh, yeah.
Who's your favorite Barrie Wrestling personality, and who is your least favorite? And the least favorite better be Mike Jeffries. No, I'm kidding. It can be anybody.
Okay. So personality, are we including wrestlers, or is it just non-wrestlers?
Who do you look most forward to in seeing on Barrie Wrestling shows? Wrestler, heck, it could be some of our crazy fans. It could be Tyler. I don't think Tyler's anybody's favorite, but today could be his lucky day.
So, for those who aren't aware, this wrestler is the reason I found Barrie Wrestling. So he is probably the one I look forward to seeing to most when I see him on cards. And that would be, of course, the guy, Vaughn Vertigo. There's just something about him and the aura he has. Like I've been a fan of it for a few years before Barrie Wrestling. Like when it came over to the UK. Um, just the way he moves, the way he flows, the beautiful Arabian moonsault. Everything about him is just amazing.
I mean, you're not going to get any argument from me. I know, Mike Jeffries is really upset with Vaughn's new vision for Barrie Wrestling in his career, but I've had the pleasure to work with Vertigo for a decade and watched him grow. And I wasn't kidding when I said that first match. It was a couple skinny kids. I think Vertigo was wearing a hoodie vest. and, and he is developed into an absolute star. Like when Vaughn Vertigo steps out, whether you love him or you hate him, you feel you are seeing a star. Yeah, everything about it. You talked about how polished he is. Everything. You just. It's like it's like seeing it's like seeing Oasis in their prime. Like you're going to see something special. Like he is rock and roll.
Yeah.
He really is, and he worth checking out if you can find him on YouTube. But he of course is a former Barrie Wrestling heavyweight champion, and he's the match that he won the title. Just incredible. He tapped out Tyson Dukes, who is a guy with great WWE pedigree and trained with the very best in the world. And Vertigo, he beat him, made him tap in the middle of the ring, and not many people can say that they've done that. So great choice. And I kind of suspected because I knew how you found us, so I thought it might be Vertigo, but yeah, absolute star. And who's your least favorite?
So, there's a very easy answer that I could say and be just like, oh, this person, Clay Wilson. But
we can just end it there. Clay Wilson, we agree. So.
No, if I had to be completely honest, I don't know. I could always go for a bit of a jokey answer and say Bobby Jr. or something like that, but
this is officially the greatest podcast in the history of podcasts.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, Bobby, and don't get me wrong, Bobby Orlando is an incredibly talented wrestler who our fans love, but that flea-infested stuffed goat, the worst thing is Mike Jeffries, he's got a Bobby Jr.
I've seen
that he brings. And, unreal.
He had it on the show that we reviewed.
Yeah, oh my God. That's the bane of my existence. I have to drink more before and after shows if I know Jeffries is bringing Bobby Jr. So although I was hoping he'd go with Clay Wilson, I can respect the Bobby Jr. Choice. So bravo.
Thank you. So before we go, actually, I might as well just reverse it back on you because it's what we do in the podcasters, and we just ask questions. Obviously, you ain't got to say it because it might risk angering some people. But in the time you've been in Barrie Wrestling and been involved with Barrie Wrestling, who is your favorite personality, favorite wrestler to call matches for?
So, and this is a tough one because I very much two phases of my career, so to speak. So I'd say from the ring announcing days, it would be Lionel Knight. So I don't know if you're familiar with Lionel. He's a veteran wrestler. He's been dealing with some injuries and health situations. So we haven't had him compete with us much recently. But in the early days of Barrie Wrestling, he was very much that the talented veteran who, much like you were talking about Young Jay Lee, like every time Young is on a Barrie Wrestling card, he's going to be in the best match or damn close to it. That's what Lionel Knight was. And Lionel he connected with the Barrie Wrestling fans like almost no, like, you know, we talked about Van Landen and Puff and their connection to Barrie Wrestling fans, but Lionel, it was you know, next level, and I would just get chills standing in the ring when he, because he's are you familiar with the old show Knight Rider?
Yeah.
It has a very distinctive theme song. So Lionel's entrance music uses a sample from the Knight Rider theme, and like I'm legitimately, you know, getting chills just thinking about some of those times where I'd stand in the ring and the crowd would lose their minds over Lionel Knight. Yeah, he's the GOAT to me. You know, I just it was tremendous being able to work with him, sort of in the IWTV era. I'm going to go, and this is you know, maybe a controversial choice, but I'm going to go with Kylo, Kyle Boone and Shiloh. Their ability to get a reaction from our fans is like nothing I've ever seen. I mean, you know, before the show, you and I were talking about Dominic Mysterio, and Kylo are our Dominic Mysterio. Like the they their ability to just completely control the crowd and get exactly the reaction they want is just, it's sensational. And you know, it's, I think it's partly unique to Barrie Wrestling, you know, much like, you know, Van Landen or is, you know, somewhat unique to Barrie Wrestling. But I absolutely love doing commentary when the royal family comes out. And it's not, you know, I said Kylo, but you know, Grizzly Mac and Musso. I mean, Musso kills me. I'm not the one usually on commentary who cracks up. You know, I spend half my time just trying to make Mike Jeffries crack up, and I succeed more times than not.
Mm-hmm.
Musso is the guy who cracks me up. You know, like there are times where I've had to mute my mic because, you know, Musso's just got a reaction from me. That group, they're so good and so much fun, and then, you know, you've got a legitimately terrifying individual in Grizzly Mac. It's just it's the perfect combination. So dividing the eras, those would be my picks.
Yeah, absolutely valid. And I feel like I know the answer to this anyway, but who is your least?
Clay Wilson, fuck that guy. Oh shoot.
No, don't worry, it's fine. In all fairness, probably a weak question on my half. I probably shouldn't have asked that. So,
but I'll give you more, you know, like an answer if you want to know who I think Barry. No, I was going to tell you who I think our fans over the years have hated the most, and you know, I think it's legitimately, it is Clay Wilson, and I've had some fun talking about how much I hate him, but that man is so good at what he does. It's amazing, and he is the pro's pro. And you know, I'll never hear the end of it saying these nice things about him, but this is a man who shows up for every wrestling event in, you know, a designer suit. He is an absolute pro about the business. He shows up. He, you know, got whatever role he has at a professional wrestling event. He delivers it to, you know, you never see Clay Wilson take a night off. You never see Clay Wilson, you know, just go through the motions. And is he despicable? Absolutely. Do I hope that he loses because, you know, he is such a jerk? Absolutely. But that man is absolutely the pro's pro. And you know, if you haven't seen Clay Wilson and you really want to hate somebody and you really want to see someone get punched in the face, check out a Clay Wilson match.
That's valid. And you heard it here first. Diamond Jim Lowe wants Clay Wilson to leave with the world title after April 13th.
No, I said I wanted to lose the Fallout tournament. You're putting words in my mouth. You're a bad. Clay Wilson pay you to do this?
No,
I thought it was bad enough that Tyler is on Van Landen's payroll, but you're on Clay Wilson's payroll? Is there a top tier talent shirt underneath that CM Punk shirt?
no one wants to see something the CM Punk shirt. But no, of course, it's all a joke, of course. No one wants Clay Wilson to win.
It's never good when Clay Wilson wins.
I mean, I'm sure it's good for Clay Wilson. But yeah, of course, that does bring an end to this show preview. Massive thank you to Diamond Jim Lowe for coming on. It's been an absolute honor talking to you.
Yeah, it's been my absolute pleasure, and I will let you wrap, but I got to do the gimmick because it's brought me 10 years. We've sold a lot of merch, so I'm going to tell you, Saturday, April 13th, FLCC, Barrie Wrestling Fallout Tournament starts. That's this Saturday, Barrie Wrestling. Don't you dare miss it!
Love to see.
Now top that, DP.
I'm not going to talk that whatsoever. Most time I get this wrong. So, to end things off as well, of course, go check out Barrie Wrestling. Everything to do with Barrie is going to be in the description below under this video. If you want to check out Jim, he's on Twitter. The Twitter is just underneath his camera there. If you feel so inclined, well, give me a follow. Mine's just here on Twitter as well. And of course, for our show outlet, we have our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, and our Twitch. We do stream somewhat regularly. We try to. We do Jackbox, so that counts. But other than that, I've been Dan. This has been the amazing Diamond Jim Lowe, and we will bid you adieu. See you April 13th.